You come, you bring your magnificent bodies. You come with your inner beings, yes? Well, your inner beings come whether you come with them or not. Depending on how good you're feeling, you may very well be very well connected with that which you really are. Or you may be in a bad mood and you may have come sort of vibrationally separate from your own inner being, but not to worry, your inner being will catch up with you as the day unfolds. Better said, you will catch up with your inner being because you are an extension of that. You know that, yes? You are an extension of source energy. You are vibrational. So is that non-physical part of you. Most of our physical humans, not necessarily those like you who are here, but most humans do not realize that they are vibrational beings. You are so good at interpreting the vibrational format of your time-space reality that you've come to all of these definitions of what reality is, and you've come to see yourselves more as the material that has culminated than the vibration that is behind it. But still, the basis of that which you are is vibrational. And when you begin to feel yourselves as vibrational beings, and you begin to tend to your vibrational nature first, then the manifestation of your experience is dramatically improved. By tending to the vibrational nature, what we really mean is paying attention to the guidance about that. And the guidance about your vibrational nature is in your solar plexus, you might say. It is what you call emotion. So the way you feel emotionally is an indicator of how you're doing vibrationally. And the guidance is based upon the relativity or the relationship between who you are in this moment by virtue of what you're giving your attention to, and who you are from source energy standpoint in terms of who you are as source energy. So those two reference points, as they are interacting with one another, are what give you your emotional feedback. Does that make sense to you? Jerry and Esther have navigational systems in their vehicles, and the navigational systems work on the same principle. The system knows where they are, and then they program in where they want to be. And then the guidance is formulated based upon getting them from where they are to where they want to be. Magellan never says to Jerry and Esther, "Where have you been?" Magellan never says, "Well, I'm not going to be able to tell you how to get from where you are to where you want to be unless you give me great detail about where you have been, ever, or especially lately," because it is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the relationship between where you are and where you want to be. So this is the way your emotional guidance system is established. The source energy from which you come is a frequency of pure positive energy. There is no resistance in that frequency. And then when you give your attention to something, as you give your attention to it, you activate a vibration within you because of whatever you're giving your attention to. And now the frequency of who you really are, or your source, is compared to the frequency of what you've got activated right here and right now. And that combination of frequencies is what gives you your emotional feedback. You see how it works? So, for example, if you were focused upon yourself and you were feeling appreciation for who you are, the feedback that you would get as these two frequencies are measured would feel like joy. It would feel like appreciation. It would feel wonderful to you, because in your appreciation of yourself, you would have activated a vibration that matches the vibration of your source. In other words, your source adores you. When you love you, you get good feedback. But if you find fault with yourself or with someone else, the feedback that you get doesn't feel so good, does it? It feels like what? Feels like resentment. It feels like guilt, or it feels like blame. It feels like, there are a lot of different words to describe it. We would like to say it feels less good than it could feel if you would choose a thought that feels better. You do a good job of finding words that match the way you feel. And as civilizations who have evolved with one another, you have become very proficient. We are very impressed with the way you've matched feelings with words. Usually, in a group discussion like this, as we would describe some situation, you would, as we ask you, what emotion label best describes the way that feels, you would come up with very similar words, because you are utilizing your guidance system much more effectively than you have any idea that you are. You have known about emotions, you have known about the way you feel from the moment you came forth into this body. It is the most significant basis of your point of attraction. It is the most significant basis of your identification of life and of where you are relative to life. And the reason that we know that so emphatically is because when you came forth into this body, that guidance system was the most important aspect of coming forth to you, because you knew that you were source energy in non-resistance, and that you were coming into an environment of tremendous variety and contrast. And you knew that you could rely on the way you felt as your significant, in fact, as your only guidance to let you know the direction of your thought or of your word or of your deed or action. And so here you are sometime later, and many of you, while you still are feeling emotions, it is a rare one of you who will selfishly, in the way you intended as you came forth into this body, it is a rare one of you who will selfishly utilize your own personal guidance system in making your choices. One of the primary premises of understanding this gathering of Art of Allowing and coming into alignment with your own emotions is that you must make a decision pretty early on in your decision to create your own reality. That you will use your guidance system, and that you will use it primarily first, and that all other influences, all other opinions must take a lesser seat in relationship to your own guidance system. Because if you are using any other guidance other than the relativity between where you are and where you want to be, you will be upside down and all around. You will not know which way to go. As Jerry and Esther travel from Phoenix to San Diego is their goal, 400 miles west. They never worry about getting there because they know it is a simple journey. They don't get at the halfway point of Yuma, Arizona, and get all upset because they're not yet in San Diego. And because they are upset, get all disoriented and then turn around and go back to Phoenix. In other words, the journey between Phoenix and San Diego is so simple and so easy to understand that they know they just have to get on their way and keep a reasonable speed and keep going until they get there. And they will get there, and they are so sure, because this journey is so quantifiable, that they don't fret or worry or fuss, even though most of the 400 miles they are not really where they want to be. We see so many of you on what could be absolutely simple, quantifiable journeys, just like the one we've described. We see the journey from a disease that has been labeled by physicians as incurable. We see the journey from that diagnosis to perfect wellness in as simple a way as we see Jerry and Esther traveling from Phoenix to San Diego. It is not a more difficult journey. We see the journey that you may be taking from not nearly enough money, mounting debts that are taking your breath away, to all of the money that you would need to fulfill every intention that you have as it is hatched within you. In other words, it is our knowing that every journey that you embark on, no matter where you are in relationship to where you want to be, is an extremely simple journey because you have the resources of the universe at your fingertips. You cannot fail. But if you go from Phoenix to Yuma, and then you turn around and go back to Phoenix, and then you go to Yuma, and then you turn around and go back to Phoenix, and then you go to Yuma, and you turn around and go back to Phoenix, and then you go to Yuma, and then you're tired now, but you turn around and go back to Phoenix, and then you go back to Yuma, and then you complain, oh, it is a long, incurable journey to San Diego. And we say, no, it isn't. You just keep turning around and going in opposition. And that is all that anybody ever does who is sick and not getting well. They're headed toward wellness, and then they freak out and take another test and go back to Phoenix. And then they're headed toward wellness, and then they take score of where they are, and then they freak out and they go back to Phoenix. We're not kidding you. It is not possible for you to have lived something in your contrasting environment which gives you an idea of what you prefer instead. It is not possible for you to not get where you want to go if you will keep headed in the direction of where you want to go. But since you're not paying attention to your own guidance system, since you're listening to that one and that one and that one and that one and that one, who have no business in your vibrational relativity between where you are and where you want to be, because they cannot possibly understand where you are in relationship to where you want to be. Your guidance system is your guidance system, and they're not wired into it. So that would be like having some equipment with some monitors and have all the feedback that you need. He has an earpiece in his ear and a mechanism so that they can communicate with one another, and they're both looking at each other's pictures. That would be like somebody over there deciding that they could guide them more efficiently, even though they're not wired into any of the equipment. And we say, you can have an opinion, but you're not wired into the equipment. You don't know as much as those who are wired into the equipment know. And you don't know what the intentions are. You don't know what the agreements are. You don't know what has happened in past seminars that has made them come to the conclusions that they have come to. Someone says, please move the light. You don't know how precisely the lights have been staged after so many seminars and watching so much footage to see when the light is just right. In other words, no one outside of you could possibly give you accurate feedback, only you, your emotional guidance system. But if you have not paid attention, if you're not knowing how to use it, if you have lost sight of the fact that if it feels good, it's better for you than if it feels bad. It seemed like a simple premise. We are surprised you let go of it so easily. Good means it is in alignment or closer in alignment with what feels not so good. So your emotional guidance system, we have written out, and we will describe to you an emotional scale, and of course it is inadequate because there are many more stops along this emotional scale than we could ever begin to describe to you. But on one end of the emotional scale is the emotion that feels very good to you. You might call it love or joy or appreciation or bliss. On the other end of the scale are emotions that you would say don't feel so good. These emotions feel like despair or depression or fear. And on the end of the emotional scale that feels good to you, there is a perception by you of freedom and empowerment, yes? And on the end of the scale that does not feel so good to you, it feels like fear or despair or depression. There is a perception by you of loss of power, of loss of freedom, yes? Can you feel that when you feel fear, that the basis of the fear is your belief, at least in the moment, that something could happen to you or someone you love, which means it's happening to you in the sense that you may feel a way that will feel awful to you and you can't control it? Isn't that what the basic fear is? Something's going to happen that's going to make me feel awful, and I won't be able to do anything that will soothe the awful feeling. So the feeling of fear is an indicator that says what you're focused upon here is so contrary to the way your inner being or your source or that which you call God is looking at this situation, that you have affected a vibration within you that is so different from that vibration that there is a vibrational resistance between you and you. So then people say, well, then I need to do something about this thing that is scaring me. Maybe we need to round all those scary people up, and we say good luck on that one, because the scary people are just those who want things differently than you do, and they're not wired into your system, you know. They can't get into your experience if you don't vibrationally activate something within you that invites them in. But let's say that you are like so many that don't know that, and so you look out into the world and you see something that frightens you, and then you conclude, we see you do it all the time, it never works, generation after generation, you conclude, we need to get rid of those frightening things. So you build more jails, you make bigger bombs, you get more enforcement in place until civilization after civilization, that theory falls of its own economic weight. because you do not have the resources as a person or as a society to control all of the conditions that you think you need to control in order to allay all of the things that